you very much.
Thanks.
Always a pleasure to
Welcome.
be here. Yeah, as we heard, we are now going to the cloud. But what exactly does that mean? In the end, we heard many stories and many important elements about sustainability today, throughout the week. But we now would like to specifically focus and look into the drivetrain and how to analyze and optimize, and in the end, save energy. Because when you save energy, you also can save costs, but of course, as important, save CO2 in the process. But Tobias, why is the drivetrain so important when it comes to optimizing and in the end saving energy?
Yeah, the interesting fact in here is that drivetrains worldwide consume around almost 50% of energy consumption. So there's a huge optimization potential in here to decarbonize the whole industry. And on the other hand side, it's also interesting that 2 out of 3 drivetrains are sized incorrectly at the moment. So also a huge optimization potential, and we can deliver some benefits with our cloud and with our software connectivity for the drivetrains. And drivetrains consist out of an electric motor, out of a frequency inverter, and a gearbox, for example, to drive applications like pumps and fans.
Yeah, and so this is now the application, right? But how do we now look into the things we just talked about, like energy efficiency and other environmental elements? Well, to start with a short overview, as Tobias mentioned, there's the drivetrain, consisting of different components. And what we do for those components, we also highlight how we improved our products when we design them, when we produce them, and when we then use them. And that is highlighted by the Siemens EcoTech label and the corresponding Siemens EcoTech profile. So that's around our products. Siemens EcoTech profile explaining, describing, making transparent how we optimize our products. But as we mentioned, today it's all about drivetrain analytics. So we need a few things to really dive deeper into the whole applications, consisting, as Toby mentioned, out of the drive, the motor, and in the end, the application. And so we have many connectivity elements, as you can also see here in this overview, where you are able to add additional sensors, software components directly integrated in our drive, and also connectivities to deliver those data from sensors and the software elements to our cloud infrastructure. And then within our cloud infrastructure, we gather the data and get many different insights about the drivetrain, how it behaves, and also things like energy consumption. So Toby, how does that now look in practice?
So yeah, what's inside the cloud actually? So inside the cloud, you have the full transparency about the energy consumption of your drivetrain. Then you can also see the CO2 emissions based on the grid mix where your drivetrain is located, so the grid mix in your country. And additionally, you have the costs of your drivetrain for a specific period of time. And you can also see the saving potentials for replacing a motor. So the digital drivetrain app and application on the cloud will show you specific potentials for optimizing your energy efficiency while changing from an IE2 motor, for example, to an IE4 or IE5 motor.
So in the end, what you're saying, there's more than one perspective, right? You can see information, how to optimize the existing drive, but also you get some insights if there might be a more energy optimized solution on the market to exchange, as you mentioned, the motor with a more energy efficient one, right?
Yes, that's the crucial part, and I think we can deliver for our customers here a real benefit, also in terms of CO2 emission to decarbonize the industry, as well as cost savings. And additionally, we also have the transparency here to look into the components of the specific components of the drivetrain. So for example, in the electric motors, we have the potential to look into the bearing status, into some potential misalignments, and into some unbalancing statuses. So we have here color coding. So we have, for example, red, yellow, and green color for specific conditions of specific components in the drivetrain.
So it's very easy, right, to then detect the state. There are not just detailed numbers you need to dive into, but even when I look at this overview, I still have the feeling that it's a lot of data. There are many data points, there's a big period of time, the last month, the last year. So Toby, is there a way to easier interact with those data and not the necessity to like deep dive into like every individual data set?
Cedric, I will tell you.
Okay, please do.
We can easily implement the Copilot inside the digital drivetrain cloud. And with the help of the Copilot, we can ask specific questions and don't have to look into the state of the data points. So we don't have to do the analysis, and the operator of these drivetrains, so for example a wastewater company, they can easily ask questions. So the maintenance team is typing in a question. Here in this example we are asking about the energy efficiency of the whole drivetrain. So what is the state and what is the optimization potential? And then,
so in the end, we're really lowering also the barrier, because I mean, you don't need to be an expert to analyze all those different graphs, but you can really ask questions, right?
In the end, it's time saving and cost saving again. So in this case here, we were asking about the energy efficiency state, and the Copilot itself is answering the question, okay, the efficiency right now is really good, it's around 94%, but there was a specific problem last month occurring. And then we can dive deeper. What was actually the problem of this inefficiency? And so we were asking, what was the problem? And the Copilot and Copilot was answering, okay, look at your misalignment state, because there are some inefficiencies and some problems occurring. So the operator itself don't have to do a full inspection of the drivetrain. He can specifically look at one component.
And I mean, that is really a huge benefit. As mentioned, you don't need to dive deep manually in like every diagram, in every data point. You are able, with the Copilot, to really interact with the data, ask questions, and also, in the end, receive valuable answers. And as this example showed, right, even though the energy efficiency in this concrete example is relatively high, you can still analyze deeper with this interactivity, and then in the end save more due to the contextualization of the system. So,
Cedric,
yes?
What are the benefits now in the end for all of our customers?
That's a very good question. I mean, now we showed a few elements, right? How to interact with the data and how to get knowledge, but what does that mean in the end for you, for your application? Well, one huge element is that we are able to prolong the product life by up to 10%. How do we do that? Well, as Toby showed a few minutes ago, we have those visualizations, we have the interaction with the chatbot, and then they really tell you things to maintain, to overhaul, and in the end, that makes sure that the system lives longer because you always keep it in an optimal state. But I would say that's not all, right?
That's definitely not all. In the end, there's also a big benefit for sustainability, because we are lowering the energy consumption and the generated CO2 emissions during the use phase by up to 10% while driving and ensuring highest energy efficiency over the whole drivetrain and the whole lifetime of this drivetrain. And in some cases, these drivetrains are operating for more than 10 or 20 years, so there's a big amount of energy savings available.
But of course, due to those insights, we are also able to reduce maintenance costs by up to 30%. And if you look into the perspective that you just gave, lifetime of maybe even 10 or more years, this is really something that you would like to have in the end, saving costs, saving money, and in the end, running a more successful business. And how do we do that in the end? Well,
by ensuring highest availability and productivity in our plants. So our biggest benefit for our customers is the productivity here, because the productivity also relates to the cost and potential cost savings.
So, we now talked about the benefits, the system, the systematic, and also how to interact. But of course, we already tried those things on our own sites, but also at valuable partners and customers. So what we now would like to do in the end, to dive deeper into one concrete example. So we have a use case with Scottish Water in the area of water, wastewater. So you can imagine many pump applications all around the plant. But how does that look like? How did they set up the example together with our experts?
So in here, we have an example of a wastewater factory and plant. And we have some screw drives. And the screw drives are driven by motor, converter, and the whole drivetrain again, ensuring the pumping application. Now, these hardware assets are connected to our cloud, because we also have some software add-ons. We are sticking, for example here, the box on the motor, and this ensures the connectivity inside our cloud. And in here, there's really the cool thing now. We have launched now the co-pilot here. So the operator don't have to look into the specific elements of the drivetrain. He can easily ask the co-pilot via our cloud what is actually the efficiency state and which problems can occur which influence inefficiency. And to this related, again, sustainability, CO2 emissions.
And the great thing is, you're able to do that for your whole plant. Every asset that is connected to the cloud infrastructure. So the benefit we saw earlier with one example, just imagine how big the benefits are if you can interact with your whole production, with your whole facility, where you have hundreds of pumping applications, hundreds of fan applications, or other drive applications. Then really those benefits are even a lot bigger.
Cedric, I also have another example.
Another one.
We don't need many people to analyze this data. We just need one or two guys who are just asking specific questions to the co-pilot. So also a really big cost saving in the end for our customers.
So what did we achieve concretely with this example? Well, in the end, for Scottish Water, we were able to reduce cost of responsive asset failures by 10%, by in the end, a 15% extended asset life. And this extension of the life, of course, also benefits from two perspectives to CO2, so bringing Scottish Water towards their net zero target, because you save resources while maintaining the plant, but of course also optimizing the energy efficiency during the big and long lifetime. So, Toby, now we talked about those tools, but I think the audience and many here on the booth are now interested and want to learn more. So is that possible? Because, I mean, even though it's the last day, I think many experts are still on the booth, right?
For sure it is. Still, until the afternoon, it's possible to ask specific questions to the co-pilot, because the team will advise you here and help you to ask specific questions and try to use the co-pilot. And you can do this on the booth here on stage number 120.
So we are really trying again to connect and create benefits by connecting the real world and the digital world, getting insights for you in the end to have benefits like cost savings, energy optimization, prolong of your plant and applications, and in the end, that's where we drive for.
Especially also sustainability, because we're reducing the CO2 emissions with our tools.